Hello, everyone. It's Greg, your host of the Opportunity Podcast, back with another banger of an episode. So today I have Andri Sadlak with me. Andri is a very cool individual. In fact, if you go to the empireflippers.com/testimonials, you'll find Andri there. He is one of our testimonials of a business we sold a few years ago of his. He says he sold his business with us. He has now gone on to move from Canada to London, and he's working with a private boutique aggregator, but he has also started his own SaaS product that will help you as an FBA seller increase your conversions using split testing. This is something that's near and dear to my heart. You'll probably hear the passion a little bit in my voice when I'm talking about split testing. I feel like no one near enough is doing it, and is one of the most valuable things you can do for your business. Like once you start making real sales, like just the money you can create, the valuations you can create from simple split testing can be truly staggering at scale. So Andri and I talk about that, but Andri and I also talk about something else that's a little bit deeper on a few different topics. So like he ended up having to actually sell his house to save his business, and he got let go of his job during all of this craziness, which is a highlight of the entrepreneurial roller coaster. So massive shout out of respect to Andri for keep on going. Now since he sold his business, he has bought a house again, and it's even better than the previous one, which just goes to show you, if you persevere, the road of entrepreneurship is bumpy, but often it is more than worth it. All right, enough gushing. Let's get into the episode. I'll see you on the other side. All right. I got Andri Sadlak with me, a customer of Empire Flippers. I'm sure I mispronounced your last name, but Andri and I have been friends for quite a long time at this point. It's exciting to get you on the podcast. For my audience that is not familiar with who you are, why don't you give us a bit of a background on who you are, what you do, and where you're at in the world?
Hey, Greg, absolutely. Great to be here. So my name's Andri Sadlak, an 8-figure e-com brand builder, co-founder of Product Pinion, which is a platform for split testing for Amazon sellers. Yeah, that's briefly about me.
Oh, there's so much more to you, my friend. You have one of our nicer testimonials when you sold your business with us. I always thought that was a really cool one. Maybe give a brief background before we go into the software that you're doing, your background with Amazon businesses in particular. Walk us through your origin story with that, some of the challenges and triumphs you faced.
Sure. So I'm originally from Ukraine, as you can probably tell by my accent. I have traveled to over 40 countries so far, lived in Canada for the last 11 years before recently moving to London, where I'm currently based for now. My journey started in 2017 when I launched my first Amazon FBA brand. I actually almost lost it in the first year due to product quality issue. And I lost my job at the same time. So I had to sell my house to save the business while living off of my backpack, traveling around Southeast Asia, Mexico, some other places. But despite early challenges with the business, I sold my first brand with Empire Flippers in late 2020. And after taking a break, I co founded Product Pinion, which is my main focus now. Oh, and I'm also helping boutique Amazon aggregator scale brands. And that's what brought me to London.
Yeah, to all the great prices of London where you can afford half a bathroom for a two-bedroom apartment in other places.
That's very true. That's very true.
I'm always
No,
shocked when
London's
my
fun.
friends. Yeah, it's so expensive there. Very cool city though. Finally had a
Yeah.
chance to get to London for the first time last year, so that was a lot of fun. That's cool, man. So before we get into like some of your software, tell me how things are going with the boutique aggregator, because we're seeing aggregators kind of shut down left and right. It's a bit quiet on that front, though. Another big one looks like it's shutting down. I believe Seller X is going on auction. So
Yeah, I've heard the
how is it
news.
going with yours?
It's going pretty well. Can't really complain. I think the reason a lot of them are failing lately is like multiple reasons, but the things we actually control as business owners are people who are scaling faster than they could actually operate the brands properly. So a lot of people who had no idea how to run an Amazon brand would be hired to manage the brand, and that leads to multiple different issues and reduces effectiveness. And obviously, a lot of them were bought at the boom, at the peak of the prices, high valuations, low cost of borrowing. Now things have flipped. So a lot of that in combination, I think. In our case, I think what makes a big difference, first of all, we're pretty small. like a dozen brands that our team manages. The team is fairly lean and everyone's very experienced and dedicated to the success. And a lot of the people in the team have built their own businesses, their own brands. They understand the game. They are actual operators. So they don't just speculate on the market situation, but they run the businesses. The co-founders are in the office every day doing the daily work. I feel like it's more sustainable that way, where people who are in charge of decisions actually understand the business really well.
You would think that would be common sense, but after selling to so many aggregators, it was quite uncommon. I
Yeah,
had one
I'm
guy
sure you've got
telling
quite
me,
experience.
yeah, yeah, man. I had one guy who was a part of an aggregator who shall not be named. He told me, he's like talking about all of his achievements and business school, Wharton, blah, blah, blah. And I just told him, like, dude, you are completely wrong. Like, this is not going to end well for you. Because, like, his due diligence was basically like a sniff that Thrasio might be buying something. He would just buy it. It's like, what? It's like, works on the spreadsheet. Like, dude, life isn't a spreadsheet. Like, you're in for a rude awakening, my man.
Right. Hashtag
So
competitive.
yeah, the finance wizards got owned a bit in comparison to the operators. So that's good to hear that they're being very operator focused. That's key in my view. So talk to
Yeah, agreed.
me. Yeah, I keep saying that before getting into SaaS, but you have so many interesting like origin stories, like leading up to your software. When you sold your house, like what was going through your mind there? Were you thinking like, "Hey, man, I need to make this work. I'm going to sell my house. I'm 100% confident that this can work." Whereas most people would have been like, "Oh man, I need to go find a job before like I look back at this business stuff again." So talk to me about what was going through your mind there.
Yeah, that was an interesting chapter. I have to go slightly back before I had to sell the house to explain the origin of the story and the reasoning. I'm a little bit of an odd case. In school, I studied architecture and later I worked as a project manager in real estate development, which was my dream job at the time. But after realizing there was no real path for growth or partnership with my employer, I started looking into side hustle and got introduced to selling on Amazon. I didn't take any courses, just YouTube, mentorship from a friend, and a lot of trial and error. So I chose a scratch off map as my first product. The map you scratch off to show where you've been, basically home decor, travel related. Actually, all the gurus were using this product as a laughing stock, a product a smart person would not launch. But I saw an
That's how you
opportunity
know it's a
to
good
make
product when you
improvements.
were to say it's a crap
Oh,
product.
yeah. So essentially, I wanted to be certain that if I enter the space, I'm actually making it better. I wasn't really confident I can do Amazon things much better being a newbie, but I knew if I make a product better, then it's going to be easier to sell it, right? So things were going pretty well. I had 20K a month in sales within the first 5 months or so, but then disaster struck. So my new inventory had quality issues,
Mm.
leading to a flood of negative reviews. People essentially couldn't scratch my scratch off map. So that happened a couple of weeks after I celebrated a new milestone of hitting 20K a month in sales. And a week after, my boss told me they no longer need me at the real estate development firm. So things were going decently well afterwards because I decided to sell the house. And the reason I had to do that is my manufacturer essentially refused responsibility and I didn't want to look for another job. I was like, I tested this entrepreneurial life a little bit. I understand how to do it again. Now I'm out of stock with my only product, but what if I improve the quality assurance process and I bring it back in stock in time for Q4 because it's a heavily giftable product? Maybe that's all I need to do, and I should take this shot because I'm pretty young at that point. And my wife was on board, fortunately. So we packed our bags. I sold the house basically myself through Facebook without any realtors. Actually, I flew to Bali. My wife flew to Nepal. She had dreamed to hike Everest Base Camp. I had to
Ooh.
skip that part because I still needed to figure out the issues. But yeah, after getting new quality inspection process in place, I got back in stock for December and crossed 50K a month in sales that month. And from there, the business kept growing.
I'm curious with all those negative reviews that you got during this, issue that's out of your control and it's like the nightmare scenario for e-commerce, right? How did you handle those like once the product was fixed? Like were you able to reach out to those people? Like is that just like a stain on the reputation that you just had to deal with going forward?
Yeah, fortunately, back then, you could still message these people. And of course, not everybody responds. But the ones who did respond, like I put a lot of thought into it, how to phrase it, how to explain it, but essentially I told everything as it was, sharing my journey in like very concise way and offering a refund and a new product. So the ones who received the message, read it, and responded were happy, and most of them, without me pushing for it, either removed the review because now they kind of had the personal story behind the business, or a couple of them actually updated it and basically made it twice as long, explaining how great it was to go through this with me. But it was like there are still many 1-2 star reviews from those times on these listings. The product's still live, selling, and obviously you can't remove them. There's no impact you can make on them as a seller anymore.
Yeah. That is such an impressive story of resilience. Entrepreneurship is such a roller coaster of ups and downs. You just celebrate your biggest high, 20K in sales a month. A few weeks later, like I am at the bottom of my entire life right now.
Pretty much.
Lost my job, the business is screwed, like I have to sell my house.
No income, mortgage,
Yeah, yeah.
same expenses,
That just
and I
goes to
no
show
longer have a
how
business.
quick things can change, man. Well, wild
Oh
story,
yeah.
extremely cool that you were able to do that. So fast forward this, you end up selling the business, right? What was going through your mind when you sold it? What was the reasoning behind the sell?
Yeah, good question. I think a lot of entrepreneurs have that in mind at some point, like at least as a milestone, if not the last step in the entrepreneurial journey. And I didn't have it when I started the business. It wasn't the plan initially. But I think I started hearing people selling similar brands. And I got curious, like, oh, this is actually sellable. Interesting. Is my business worth something? Not just to me, because I'm emotionally attached, but to others. And I think at some point when I had a little bit of existential crisis, for like 1.5, 2 years into the business, I was like, what if I can do something else and I can do it better? And right now, all of my energy is just tied to daily grind of keeping this alive and growing. So I wrote down in my journal then I'm gonna sell this brand for $500,000 USD. And at that time, it seemed crazy to me. I'm an immigrant. For like 50K in the capital of Ukraine back then, you could buy a decent apartment and be called successful, you know. I mean, obviously in Vancouver, Canada, where you used to live, you couldn't even buy a condo for that much. But to
You
me, it
keep
was like a
scaling that up. Now
milestone.
you're in London. It's even worse.
Yeah, it's all relevant, relative, right?
Right.
But to someone like me with no like connections whatsoever, I had to be responsible for my own finances in life since I was a kid, essentially. I was like, if I sell it for 500,000, will mean that I can do something like this, and that'll give me enough confidence and capital to try again and maybe go bigger and make an even more impactful business venture. That's essentially what happened later, I think. But it wasn't an easy decision, that's for sure. And selling the business wasn't necessarily like an ego play, but more like, am I worth what I think I'm worth? And let's see if somebody else says that what I've built has a value. And I tried another broker before switching to Empire Flippers. That was not the best experience. Then with
Could
Empire
you say
Flippers,
that? Could you say that part again?
we
Hey man,
can
for
play it
free
on
promo.
replay every morning. Not
I
everyone
think
does this well. Let's put it that way.
I think that's a beautiful story, man. Yeah,
Yeah, I
go
felt
ahead.
like Empire Flippers was pretty fair for both the buyer and the seller. What I was gonna say essentially is selling it was more like confirmation, but not necessarily the end goal. And after I sold it, I didn't really have a clear plan what to do next. So I took a little bit of a break, but I think it was very helpful for me to reassess where I'm at and what I want to do for the rest of my life. So it was generally a positive experience and a good decision, even though a year later I could probably sell it for twice as much.
As you do, right? Don't kick yourself on that, man. Like I have a
No, no, no,
friend
no regrets.
I have a friend. He has a business. I was trying to get him to sell with us for probably 6 years, or no, 5 years
Wow,
probably. And at its peak, it was worth $8 million. I told him, like, dude, this is like he was very much a lifestyle kind of guy. So he had no plan of making this into like a very sustainable business. It wasn't e-commerce, it was a content business. But I told him, dude, you need to sell this right now. The way you're doing it is a house of cards. You need to cash out now and like let someone who's like more enterprise focused, KPI focused, like let's build teams and systems, like take this over. He didn't because he did the like there's more juice left to squeeze type of mentality, right? And Google update crushed him. Now it's worth
wow,
less than 200K probably. No one's going to buy it. Like the fall from grace is so dramatic,
crazy
right?
cycles
Yeah,
in business.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that is such a cool story. So let's fast forward. You sell the business, you collect the liquidity, you take a break, and now did you go to London first or did you start the software first? Tell me a bit about like as you get back into the game now with this capital, right? Tell me a bit of how your life has changed there.
No, for sure. There was no plan to move anywhere initially. I still think Vancouver is one of the best places to call home and maybe back. So most of the capital actually went into buying a new house, down
You know,
payment only,
same
not
house.
enough. No, another one, much better this time. So we still have it, but I think what it allowed me to do is to try different things. So I did partner with different people for different projects, more like small scale, testing it out after just doing nothing for a couple months. And the one project that actually worked out and where I actually developed really strong passion for is product opinion, the software. And I think the reason that succeeded from all the things I tried afterwards was it's 100% aligned with how I've been building my first brand and how I would build anything else moving forward, which is essentially being customer centric and focusing on delivering the best product and the best marketing for the shopper and not being ego driven and assuming things as most sellers tend to do.
Yeah, and designers too. I have a friend, he's a designer. He's asking me for marketing advice, and I told him like, "Oh, you should go with this design." He's like, "But that doesn't look good." Like, yeah, but the market doesn't care what you think looks good. They just care about what they think
Exactly.
looks good.
Yeah. If I learned anything in the last 7 or so years, that would be that you don't trust yourself.
Yeah,
Always question yourself and ask as many people as you can from your target audience.
I agree with all of that. I've been in marketing long enough now that if I see any number that looks like good, I wonder, like, my first thought is, what's wrong? Like, is the tool lying to me? Is something awry, you know? So, yeah, I'm with
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. I hear you.
So, talk to me about how you started this software business. Explain it a bit to me. Like, it's an A/B testing software, like consumer research type, like marketing research tool, basically, right? Talk to me about
Essentially, yeah, it's more like focus groups focused. So the way we came to it, so as I was building my first brand, which is, as I said, travel related, home decor, I've been building my Facebook community for the brand, but it wasn't like posting product pictures every day and asking people, hey, go buy again. It was more like having some fun, communicating with like-minded individuals because I'm very much digital nomad,
it. Mhm.
love traveling. So it was a brand for people like me. So it came natural to me to communicate with travelers and build a community. And what I used it for a lot was split testing and product design and product validation and figuring out the pain points. And very often I would come down to a product idea by using multiple sources, traditional Amazon research with keywords and sales data and stuff like that. And also talking to travelers all the time, like the rest of my time, and asking opinions in that Facebook community would lead me to certain products and maybe unique angles of the product. And then I would split test with them and be like, do you like this scratch off map with a black background or white background? Do you want the national parks map? Do you need flags on the national parks map of the United States? Would you put them here or there? And I would also bug people personally because at some point I developed online relationship with a lot of them. And I would ask them, hey, I need your opinion here. It matters to me. What do you think? And that way I was able to not only pick out of all the options I had in my mind the best ones, which were confirmed by Amazon sales to be successful, but also perfect the designs and community would help me launch. Because if they participate in the design process and they know they've been heard, even if they just have to select one of the poll options, they express their opinion and they feel like they co-created. And the day you launch, you give them, say, 10% as a thank you for all the contributions, and they support you and they post about it. And it's natural, it's real, it's the way small businesses have been done for ages, right? So that was super helpful. And I think because I had that approach, like extreme humility, I trust this group of essentially friends, and I'm designing this for them to make their life better in some ways. That led me to this software idea. And essentially, it came around the same time for both me and my partner. My partner has already been working on this service for himself. My partner's name is Matt Costin. He's been doing a lot of Kickstarters in the past, Amazon seller as well. So both of us are in the trenches. And he showed me this at some point. We connected on Zoom just online. He's like, look at this. This is what I'm doing. I don't have a Facebook community, but I use usertesting.com and I get people's feedback or a video And then I created this other platform. I tap into this platform of essentially micro workers, in a way, if you can call it that way, where people get paid for time in expressing their marketing opinions. And they helped me with these kind of decisions. And it was super rough, but it was already better than the only solution at the time. And I was like, wow, this has legs. Why don't we grow this? And I also have a small community, Ecom Brand Builder Mastermind. So I ran it by them and they joined as a beta users, and keep apologizing to them from time to time for having to go through it, because after that we completely revamped it. It was not good in the beginning, but that feedback, which is what I preach, led to actually a user friendly, valuable tool for Amazon sellers to optimize listings.
That is awesome. I'm a big fan of the whole A/B testing in general. Like, 100 visitors to page A versus page B. Page B converts 20%. That's like pure profit, right? Because
Yeah,
the amount of money to get the 100 people is the same. It's just they're converting better. We actually have a business.
exactly.
A customer bought it from us, and they basically took it. I think it was like I want to say 2.1 million, and it became like a $4 or $5 million business in a very short time. And one of the main reasons why is because of A/B testing, getting like user feedback. Like I think the win they found was on like package coloring. That just massive. Like everyone loved the color. Basically, it was something pretty
Color is
simple, right?
important.
Yeah. So when it comes to getting these consumer research stuff on Amazon products specifically, do you find like a common thing that people are saying? Is there a common like, oh, the description doesn't make sense or the pictures suck? Like, what's the kind of the trends that you see with this?
Yeah, it would be easy if there was a common solution to all of the
It's
niches and
different.
all
It's
the
not different
products.
for everything, huh?
It's very different. And even sub niches within the same niche, you hear completely different responses because all of a sudden other things matter to this new demographic and you had no idea because you're not that demographic. No, there's no go to solution. One thing, if I can generalize, is you want to be able to stand out in the vast pool of Amazon search results, but you also want to be able to stand out in a good way, not just like a weirdo. Easier said than done, but
Yes.
pattern interrupt is very important, and that's the first stage. Then you have to make sure it's a positive one. You kind of use the language visually and with text in the listing that is familiar and native to your target audience and addresses all of the major pain points. And by showing that you understand them, you build trust. Because branding is all about trust. Not everybody's buying the cheapest. It's about connecting with the buyer and kind of being like, hey, I'm your guide. I'm going to solve your problem. Here's how. Easy. I'm not going to add you more problems with my product. I'm going to take some from you because I understand you. And then they want to follow your lead. But it's all theory. I think general thing, 80% of your success, optimizing main image, in my opinion. Then maybe 10% is like the rest of the listing. Make sure you close it, close the sale. And I guess the rest of the like what's left, 10% staying in stock, making sure PPC is optimized,
Say,
SEO is
stay
done
in
well,
stock. I literally just had a podcast earlier today, and we had a whole section about staying in stock. Like that is not always the
always a
easiest
challenge.
task.
No, it's never easy. It's never
So
easy.
let's say I'm an FBA seller, right? I'm looking, like, okay, Andre, I want to use this software. What advice would you be giving me to set up my first test? Is there like, I'm assuming you would recommend I do one variable at a time, but is there other stuff that I should know
100%.
going in before I start a test?
If I had to break it down into simpler steps, let me think. It would probably be 4 steps. And most sellers I talk to, and obviously I breathe conversion. I love this subject. To me, that's the main thing you can get better at and should focus on as a seller. The first step would be collecting focus group insights. Most sellers don't do this. So the starting point would be gathering that feedback from your target audience. For example, I used my Facebook community for my first brand, and sellers today can leverage the software we built with video feedback, where a selected demographic of people reviews, say, search results or listings, specific links you give them, and they answer out loud the questions you have and provide brutally honest feedback. And they can say things like, oh, this is confusing. Oh, is it microwave safe? I don't see that. It's important. Oh, it is. Okay. And then you know what matters to them, what they're looking for. Someone can be like, oh, this is actually vegan and I care about vegan stuff, so I buy this one even though it's more expensive. And you're like, wait a minute, every single product in this space is vegan. It's not food, but the way they're made. And only the ones who say that get the click and get the sale. Okay, now I know, right? So stuff like that, you can't really discover in any other way. So you have to find a way to talk to customers. And I think the way we built it is very useful and easy. And this helps uncover the insights that can be easily missed and should be split tested next, right? Like there's this case I love sharing from Travis Ziegler, the brand he sold, eye drops. He used to be an eye doctor. He built this brand for eye care. And that was the example I used was exactly from there. People were looking at search results and I could see their screen and they're like, oh, this one's vegan and cruelty free. I'm going to click on this one. Another person, same message. And I'm like, 4 out of 10 in these videos explain that as the reason to click on the listing. And looking at listings, they had no objections. Let's try. And he had no idea. He's a PPC guy, SEO driven. Didn't make sense for him to use vegan and cruelty free in the title because you lose that real estate in the title that could be used for other important SEO keywords. But I think that's the first stage, to uncover what actually matters. Then second stage would be creating multiple versions. So now that you understand what matters, how you communicate it is very important. And the way you see that being communicated may not be the best way. So you always want to have multiple options and ask people and be willing to go back to the drawing board. And then based on the insights from previous tests and focus groups, you create those versions, you upload them to test. And what I recommend doing is Amazon search simulation test on product opinion, because it simulates search results. You basically pick bestsellers that will be shown next to your product, and people who give the feedback, to them it looks exactly the same as Amazon. And then if they click on something, that's most likely how they behave looking at the search results in real Amazon setting. And then they have to explain why. And what's important, definitely at least look at the AI summary we have or read the responses for all the like top selected products. Even if you have statistical significance, you win, read the reasons people buy others or click on others, and maybe there's something else you can learn and implement. And yeah, split testing, and the more the better, ideally in the context, as I said. And next stage would be Amazon native A/B tests, so Amazon experiments. It can be very slow from my latest experience, like 6 to 8 weeks on average. So definitely the last stage. Doesn't mean whatever you came up with off Amazon testing would be the exact same result, but you'll definitely learn something and you minimize your risks. Because if you just assume something and you upload it straight to Amazon, like last thing our creative team has done that way was leading to 10.5K in sales in 2 weeks, because 50% of the time it wouldn't convert. And obviously it impacts everything. It impacts your PPC, your keyword ranking. So to minimize that risk, you just want to perfect it before you upload to Amazon. And I guess fourth step, I think I named three. Fourth step would be to reiterate, test again, keep questioning yourself, revisit your ideal customer feedback, see if there are new sellers who seem to be selling pretty well, growing well. You see every day they have more and more reviews. That means they're doing something right. Maybe the context has changed, because you're not just on the white background. Actually, you are always stacked against other competitors on Amazon. So reiterate, test again. So one, collect focus group insights. Two, create multiple versions. Three, split test in simulated environment and move to Amazon. Then four, test again. Never ending process. There's huge benefit to constant improvement. There's like basically the principle of compounding. And as long as you stay on top of things and always improve it a little bit, you benefit from that compounding. And none of your competitors will be as resilient and committed to perfection as you are.
That was a brilliant little monologue there, my friend.
Sorry for making it a monologue.
Like there's a lot of marketing wisdom in there, right? Like I'm a marketing nerd and I'm sure you are a little bit as well.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I have a friend, he's like trying to sell this service with his company. And I asked him just straight up, like, hey, like some people have bought this service. Have you talked to any of them? Like, why did they buy it? What were they looking for? What was their life like after they bought it? Right. Like
Mm-hmm.
typical before and after stuff, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I haven't. Like, oh, well, go do that. Because like the reason why they bought it is probably missing in your copy. Like that's like probably what you should be focusing on, or at least starting to focus on, right? And it was just too much work for him in his view. So now he's just doing like weird like copywriting hacks that like dude, like you could do all those copywriting hacks 20 times easier if you just understood the offer that people wanted. It goes to what
Yeah.
you said, right? Like find out like the vegan gluten-free thing. Like, okay, that's the offer they want. And then play with the angle, like vegan for athletes or whatever, right? Like it's still vegan, but now you're playing with the angle of it to see which angle is like working best, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And
you're
yeah,
so right on this. You're so right on this.
what you said, your fourth step, that's like people who are very committed to this, they'll go all the way up to step three, and that's fantastic. It's way more than most. But fourth step, like no one does that. But like
Exactly. Yeah,
markets
people just
change,
close the
things change.
task, they move
So
on. Yeah,
yeah.
that's true. I think it's about being relentless and a little bit of perfectionist, yet removing your ego from the equation and always being curious what else could make that extra 1% shift. Very often for sellers, especially the 7+ figure sellers, that 1% shift in conversion means you can hire another person or means you
Oh
can
yeah.
buy another property if that's your game.
It's
And people
massive.
don't see that as a
Yeah.
problem. Lost opportunity isn't really perceived as a problem because people tend to psychologically fear losing something instead of not gaining something, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Especially if they already have something, right? Where they have something to
Exactly.
lose, they become more fearful. But yeah, I mean, even Empire Flippers, we split test things now and again when we can. Our business is kind of weird to do it because there's so many variables, but we did a few years ago, we updated our valuation tool, like brand new design, CRO tested, pretty much doubled how many evaluation tools we were getting. And with our
Wow.
business being pretty high ticket, that's significant, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then I think it was 2 years ago, I optimized it a bit more for SEO. I need to do it again, but that increased the organic leads by, I think it was 126%. I spent like 30 minutes on that, right? I just used the SEO optimizer tool and bam, boom, done. Like an average ticket back then, I think our average size business was like, 800, 900K. So that was pretty significant, right?
Oh, yeah. That makes a big difference. Yeah.
Massive.
Like
Yeah.
in the brand I'm responsible for with this aggregator, we have a product that sells on average between 45 and 65K a day, one of the best sellers. So making even a small improvement there makes such a big difference throughout the year. And not if your mind specifically from sales numbers, people who understand Amazon understand that it impacts everything. Like if conversion is good, your PPC placements are better, your spend is lower, your keyword ranking goes up because in Amazon's algorithm, it's all about conversion. And that's why people who leverage TikTok, another big topic, and I definitely recommend people to leverage it, they bring more traffic to the listing, which Amazon doesn't count as like in their equation. They just count sales. So in the equation, if more people purchased versus Amazon searches, you get placed higher up in the search results. One of my friends is in a very competitive space, like one of the commodity products, but consumable, got to like number one in that category, which means like over 1 million a month easily in sales just by playing with that algorithm. So there are two ways: you bring your own traffic, which is completely different skill set, or at the very least you want to optimize for the traffic that exists on Amazon, which is the main reason we sell on Amazon. There's traffic, you don't have to bring it, makes it easier. But if you don't optimize it for all the time, someone else will, like someone like me, my
Someone
friends.
using your tool.
And
Yeah.
eventually
Yeah.
your amazing business that looks like it's doing super well will start losing to someone with less reviews, less history, just because they communicated properly, especially the main image.
Yeah, I like for anyone in my audience listening to this, if you are not sold on A/B testing, like, and you ever want to sell your business, like, this is probably one of the easiest ways to increase your valuation. Just doing what we are
Oh yeah,
talking about here. Like, if you go from 10K a month to 20K a month, let's say you went from 30K a month to 60K a month. That's a difference between like maybe $1 million in your valuation, depending on the multiple. There's other stuff that goes into it, obviously, but that could be an extra $1 million when you go and exit that business potentially, right? It could be
that's a
massive.
good
So,
point.
and people never think that that far downstream, right? But it's like extremely powerful. So I want to switch gears here a little bit from the split testing stuff. I
Hmm.
think that stuff is absolutely fascinating. But with everything that's going on with the economy, with the competitive nature, like Amazon's no longer like this easy thing, or at least I wouldn't say it's easy. Like 2016 was easy. There's a lot more professionals in the game, like you just mentioned, the aggregator you're working with. How does the market feel right now? Like, or the FBA people feel like they're drowning underneath the new Bezos fines are coming in. They're increase the fees, right? Talk to me a bit about the landscape of FBA today.
Well, I think it's very different. You're right. I wouldn't call it easy when I started. Like in 2017, it was already pretty competitive. You had to have a little bit of marketing mind to be able to win, but it's very doable if you stay agile and flexible and you try things all the time and ideally have some capital to play with. The market has definitely changed. There are external factors, as we all know, the cost of borrowing, especially for like buying, selling businesses side of things, that plays a big role. And I think overall market confidence in the Amazon space has shifted. So the buyers are way more cautious. Due diligence is way more diligent, and
I
it's
bet. Yeah. We
harder.
feel it from our side.
You feel it,
Dude,
right?
so this is a bit of an aside, but we just had two businesses doing fantastic. And because the buyer, I'm doing a whole piece of content about this down the road, but
Hmm.
because the buyers both were too meticulous with their due diligence, they like went way beyond the limits. Like the business is now worth a lot more because the businesses were growing, they're crushing it, right? So
Wow,
now the seller's like, hey, wait a second,
that's a good
I don't
problem.
want to sell it at this price anymore, right? And so now the buyer is going to have to come back and probably spend more because their due diligence was a little bit too meticulous. They missed an opportunity
How
there.
long
But
did it
yeah,
take for them to kind of be confident?
I don't know the exact details, but I want to say like pretty average exclusive DD is usually between like 30 to 45 days. Like the average time to sell now is roughly 90 days for a lot of businesses. And they took an extra like 2.5 months
Oh,
above
wow.
the normal. So obviously, like the seller's getting a little antsy. He's like, okay, guys, come on.
No, I understand the seller. I was
Yeah.
pretty much in that situation because I
Yeah.
listed in Q4 and every day it's getting better, you know.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. Market is different and only the smartest, the grittiest, if that makes sense, and most experiential, curious entrepreneurs, I think, will make it through it. And I expect the cycle to change as it usually does, and then we'll be able to sell businesses for say multiples or more again, if that's the end goal. I think what's also important to keep in mind, if you're in the trenches right now, whoever's listening, they're building the brand and you want to sell at some point, I think it's a very noble goal now that I went through that process. And the reason I say that is once I decided that's going to be my goal, the business became so much better for me. Like I started actually building it in a way that it's sustainable and it makes sense and I have enough margin to grow it. Because I was like, what if somebody looks at these numbers? They wouldn't want to buy it. What if somebody has to take over this process? Would they be puzzled and confused and just walk away? And I think having that as a goal actually makes it a better business for everybody, you, your staff, and the buyers. And better times are coming. I always like kind of have to be positive as an entrepreneur. So keep building it, make it sustainable. If you want to make it more like a big exit, I would consider looking into ways to build a community behind your brand. So don't treat it purely transactionally, like, hey, I get these sales on Amazon. If you have more like 3 to 5 year timeline, I think having a community behind, even a small community, can make a huge difference. Not only for like focus group testing that we were talking about, but also they can be your support network because you support them in their life journey, and it's extremely valuable. It's people who recommend you. It's word of mouth. It's which is still 80% of the marketing. Yeah, don't overlook it. It's easier said than done. It takes a lot of time and effort, and not everyone is comfortable to publicly communicate with their audience. But there are ways, and if you're down to read and learn about ways to build a story brand, there's a cool book I really love, which is called essentially Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. He explains many things on how to make it more like a story and stand out against the Chinese competitors and justify the value. It's not just the product.
Yeah.
Kind of want to build a movement.
I think that is extremely solid advice. The only thing I would add on, and I think you would probably agree with me, it kind of goes hand in hand with community, is like the more you can make Amazon into just another traffic channel, and you have other traffic channels, like say to a DTC store, and then you have the halo effect. Because there's this interesting thing a lot of people don't think about, the marketing halo. Like say I'm selling shoes, right? I run a Facebook ad selling shoes. People see that, they don't buy it for whatever reason, but they're interested. They clicked it, right?
Yeah.
Then they can't remember the brand, so they go to Amazon because they still want the shoes. There's some kind of shoes, and now they see my shoes there. Right? Like, that's the one, right? So like, even though that was going to your Shopify store, you're still cashing in on that Amazon
Yeah, you
golden
just take the
halo
sale
there.
on Amazon. You take the
What's that?
sale, you leverage the
Yeah.
algorithm. It's essentially a storefront.
Yeah. But
And
the
yeah,
ending of there, I was going to say, like, whatever you can do to own the customer, right? Like with your email list, with the community, like the more you own that customer journey. And to your point, it's not easy, it's hard.
no,
But if you're able to do it, it increases your value dramatically.
yeah, it's not easy if you think about the big scale of things. But if you take it small thing at a time, you learn something new every day, you try something new every day. I think it's very doable, and I see a lot of people in my network do it properly. So I think anyone essentially can find their way into building the community. And as you said, it's own marketing. If you can build email list that likes receiving communication from you, you won the game of e-commerce because Chinese cannot do that, even if their
Yes.
product is
Yeah.
cheaper. Maybe some of them can, obviously, but I'm just generalizing for the sake of making it simpler. But yeah, and I think split testing comes hand in hand with this because it's essentially being customer centric. It's serving the person who gives you the money. And if you don't pay attention to the audience you're serving, or you don't pay attention enough, and you're mostly just comparing yourself to the best selling competitors, it's always a game to the bottom with the pricing. But if you actually understand what customers need, you address those concerns properly in the right sequence, the right language, the right way, colors, shades, everything. You optimize it ideally for AI recognition on Amazon, which has become pretty big. So you're not missing out on all the new trends and changes that are coming to the e-commerce space. And you have that relentless mind that you want to always become better. You'll outcompete even in the most competitive spaces. So it's all
Well
about
said.
mindset, in my opinion.
Yeah, so much of it is about finding a way to compete on emotion versus logic, right? Like logic would be competing on price only, and
Yeah.
that's a race to the bottom. And no one's going to win that. Even the Chinese guys, they're going to get destroyed by the next Chinese guy who tries to like underscore him with some new black hat strategy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's all about building that brand. I know you have a meeting coming up, and I want to be respectful of your time. So just a few more questions. I have one question, and then we'll move into a rapid fire round here. But with all your experience and now with kind of broader eagle eye view with these customers who are doing this user testing, how do you feel the Amazon marketplace is going to evolve, and how can sellers prepare for that evolution that's coming?
Well, there's definitely clear direction in to user generated content driving the sale and driving the demand. And I don't know if there's still rumors or there's more developments since I last heard about it, but it looks like Amazon's going to partner with TikTok in some ways. Maybe it's going to become more like a one ecosystem at some point. As a brand, I would definitely treat it that way. It's just different touch points for you as a brand. And wherever you bring the customer is up to you, and you can optimize for different goals. But I think general approach would be build a real brand. What is a real brand? A brand people trust. Why people trust it? Because the brand understands what shoppers need and uses the right storytelling methods and solutions product wise to be relevant and always up to date with the target demographics needs and solving their problems. So it's all about making your customer a hero and staying up to date with what Amazon changes with AI, with user generated content, all of these kind of seemingly small things that add up. And if you're always relevant, you're always going to win. And obviously, one of the big things, something a lot of new sellers miss. So, this wouldn't be a message to seasoned sellers, but you want to be ideally in a space where you have healthy margin because that allows you to play with marketing. So, I'd say my rule of thumb would ideally be around 40+% in margin, which allows you to participate in deals on Amazon and leverage what Amazon has, Amazon traffic, and would also allow you to test things, try new things, and fail and try again. Because otherwise, if it's 10% margin, you try, you failed, business closed, right? And ideally, another component I would have in my criteria, look for products to bring to your brand that have consumable nature, that have a reason for people to be on subscribe and save, and any ways people would have a need to come back to you. Maybe it's sequence of products that work together, but ideally the same product they come back to. That makes it easier operationally. These
That
are
makes a
my
lot of
small
sense.
pieces
Yeah.
of advice.
I wish there was some way to make business acquisition a consumable product, or like Andre has to buy $1 million business from me every month. I'm always jealous of the shorter life cycle in the sales cycle for e-commerce, right? Like 30 days, like, mine's 350, 350 days.
Right.
So cool, man. I think all that's great advice. So we're going to move in the rapid fire section. I'm going to ask you three quick questions. You give me three quick answers. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. In your view, what is the best hidden growth opportunities for Amazon sellers today?
I'm biased, but I think focusing on conversion.
I knew you were going to say that. I actually agree with you because no one focuses on it, as we talked about earlier. So I agree with you. What tools or resources would you recommend for people to help scale their Amazon business?
Definitely TikTok. For Amazon specifically, definitely split testing with product opinion. Actually, another tool or extension to our tool that people will benefit from is pretty new. We haven't even started advertising yet. It's called Variationizer, which allows you to quickly create new versions of main image to split test using AI. Super easy to use, essentially Canva methodology. So I would say three: leveraging TikTok traffic, optimizing using focus groups on product opinion, and for you to create versions to split test, at least conceptually, Variationizer. And it's variationizer.com.
Great. Final question, hardest question. Since you've started working in the Amazon world, what has been your funniest moment? No pressure. Got it. Hopefully, you have a good answer
I
here.
think the funniest moment is after I sold the business, maybe a month or two after, I saw a lengthy YouTube video of a girl who has a world Guinness record for visiting all of the countries in the world, using my map to tell her whole story and go through all of the countries she's been to. And my map's always on the background. And the reason it was funny to me was for the last 2 years or so before I sold the brand, I was trying to get a hold of her team to get her to talk about it. And it only happened after I sold it.
Oh, that is awesome. I just had a kind of a similar experience, not to that level, but this guy really wants to do this like partnership with us, right? And I'm always open, if it's interesting. And he was like trying to hound me down. And it was just one of those weeks, really, really busy, right? So I hadn't responded to him. And then I noticed when I was replying to him to set up the meeting, he had sent me three emails, and one of the emails was a reply to an email I sent him. But like, have I ever talked to this guy? And I looked at my reply and I realized I had sent him a cold email to do a business partnership back in 2018. So I responded to it like
Full
I
circle
always knew my
moment.
cold email was going to work eventually. Only took like
That's
5
awesome.
years.
Yeah, it takes time. Takes time. I actually met my business, what do you call it? Valuation manager, I guess, from Empire Flippers just a month or so ago, Ross. And
Yes,
only
Rocco.
by talking to him, I realized that he was involved in the process. I checked my emails, like, oh, yeah, you are the guy. We haven't talked since the exit. I'm like, wow, full circle moment. Now I talk to you in person.
So I was actually going to ask you a secret question at the end here. Is there anything disparaging you'd like to say to Rocco? You don't actually have to say anything, but I just want to say I asked that question to Rocco. And then when this goes live, you'll be like super anxious, like, oh God, what did Andre say about me?
No, no.
Oh man, what
Love
a
the team.
sweetheart.
Love you guys.
Rocco's
Yeah,
going to be
it's
blushing.
yeah, it's been great. And another funny thing, actually, quickly on that point, the business I sold, I realized was recently sold again through Empire Flippers. I have no details. I haven't talked to the new owner or anything like that. But I was like, wow, I actually did start something that has a long life cycle, which outpaces 90% of the businesses. So I think, yeah, the process you guys have built and constantly improve definitely makes sense. And I keep sending my seller friends to talk to you guys if they think about selling. So
Oh,
that's
I
that's
love
my
it, man.
testimonial.
You're a friend of the company. I was really glad to see you show up at the M&A social, and Rocco like sent me a picture of you guys like hanging out. Like, oh, that's super cool. And it is funny, dude. Like your business sold twice. I think I've sold the same business over the last 8 years 4 times now. So yours is making a
Wow.
run for it. If it sold twice already,
Let's
maybe
see
the
if we
third time's
can
coming up.
beat it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a cool business. So, well, cool, man. We're at the end of the podcast here. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. For anyone in my audience that wants to connect with you, whether it's your your research product, or just, pick your brain, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Absolutely. I'm super down to chat with like-minded entrepreneurs, and I'm definitely not a hardcore salesman. So if you never use my software, I'm still going to be a friend. So reach out anywhere you find me. I'm on all social media, Andri, Sadlak, and the website of the software is productpinion.com. You can email me, Andri, Andri, at productpinion.com. Happy to jump on a call, give my suggestions, advise on what I would do, advise on the exit plan if you need. Yeah, happy to chat anytime.
Make sure you use Andre's referral link.
Absolutely.
PDF referral link.
Always helps.
Awesome, man. Well, it was such a pleasure, man. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
There you have it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it got you inspired at all the different things that are happening in this industry. And of course, if you just want to buy a highly profitable business, you can always go to empireflippers.com/marketplace, or maybe you want to make an exit of your highly profitable business, and you could go to empireflippers.com/sell your site. I've been your host, Greg. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you leave a review, give us a like, a follow, share it across social media. Talk to you all soon. See you on the next episode.